Hello, IT145 students. This is Professor Heuser once again. And I want to talk about what happens as we get into more complex applications that are um, more complex. And we start editing projects with multiple files. So to do that, I have a very simple application I wrote that does almost nothing. It's got a student class and it's got a driver. And all it does is it creates a student, gives that student a name, and says, I created a student, prints it out. That's it. So the driver is just really a test for the object. And we can run it, and it'll say, created a new student. Yay, everything works. Now let's talk about that student class for a minute. So it's very simple. You have two variables, first name and last name. And actually, if we wanted the best practice points for the score, we would make first name and last name capital N. Now, it's very common as we are doing this sort of work that new requirements come in. We want to store student ID. No problem. So I'm going to do something like private integer student ID. Super easy, right? Barely an inconvenience. And we're going to have that in the constructor. Maybe like this. Integer ID. And then we're going to call set student ID in the constructor. Now you'll notice there's this little red X here. That is it's not going to work. That there is a compile error. And if I mouse over it, it'll say the method setStudent is undefined for the type student, right? So I call setStudentID. There is no setStudentID method. We're going to get the little compile error. So I did type up a getter and setter, put them in my paste buffer, and so there they are. Very straightforward stuff we've been doing for most of the semester. Get the student ID, set the student ID, do the assignment. And as you look, there's no errors here. This all just should work. And yet, when I try to run the program, proceed. Oh, there's an exception. But there's no X's. How could this be? Well, somewhere else in the program, we create a student, and we do it the old-fashioned way with first name and last name. By the way, before I get to that, just sidebar, this is a really important point for encapsulation because you might take in the student ID as a string, and then you make sure that it's 9 characters long or 10 characters, whatever it's supposed to be. Maybe there's some rules about, maybe it's 15 characters, and the first 2 are the state that you come from, and the next set is your birthday, and the last is truly unique. You could have all kinds of rules that you build in. You could internally represent it as an integer, and then pass it around as a string, and your setter could return a Boolean, or throw an exception, which we'll cover later. If something goes wrong, return a true false if it doesn't return a false if something goes wrong, or could throw an exception if the value that you pass in is not a proper student ID. So you can put all that logic in the setter, and then the internal representation can be whatever you want. Likewise, you could take in an integer and convert it to a string and do all the checks. Maybe you store it internally as a string. That's the power that encapsulation gets you. And you can change your internal rules for justification, for understanding if it works or not, without changing your public external interface. Or you could have 2 getters and 2 setters, one that takes a string, one that takes an integer. There's a lot that you can do with that. But something's gone wrong somewhere. I'm getting an error message. In fact, when I run it, and always run it, proceed, there's an error. Exception in main. Okay, that's going to be our main routine. Now, if I look up here, if you see driver Java, you might have to maximize this on a laptop to see this. I don't know how it's going to show up on YouTube, especially not on your phone. But driver Java has a little X in front of it. That's because there's a compiler. What's the compiler? Well, we're going to make a new student here, and this is missing a student ID. Sometimes you're just going to be able to click this, and there it is, add argument to match. Click that. Well, it's a 0. That's not good. We don't want a student ID of 0. Let's do a student ID of, that's 1 here. Maybe 52, 35, 20. Because this college has a lot of students, right? So it should be a bigger number. And now, when we save it, the X that was there went away, the X that was there went away, and now it's going to run. So what you want to do is you want to run clean. When you've written just a little bit of code that affects other files, do a save, look around for the X's, and fix them so you can run. Start out with a driver program that prints out the basics and then add to it and continuously run. If you don't do that, what will tend to happen is you'll be done the assignment and nothing will work and you can't figure out why, and you spend, I would guess, possibly 2 to 6 times as long debugging it as it took to write in the first place. So don't do that. That's not a recommended practice. Instead, write a little code, make it work, try to run it. And to do that, you have a inner loop or inner set what it does. Make that as small as possible and add to it over time. We call that incremental. There's an argument to be made that with writing it all once and then testing it, you only have to do the testing once. But what you're actually going to do is you're going to find all the bugs in testing and try to get quality in through testing, which is a terrible strategy. And I wrote a testing textbook. I love testing. Don't do it that way. Try to get it to work along the way iteratively. And I think that's enough for today. I didn't want to do a long video. I really don't know what the announcement would be to match this video. Probably just a narrative explanation of what I tried to show. So I'm just gonna, well, I'll throw the video up there, and then I'll write some text later maybe, because it's getting late here. It's Saturday night, but the assignment's due tomorrow, and I want to put this out there, and it's going to help future classes. So thanks everybody. If you need anything, I am an email away. If you have become blocked and emails are taking too long, you probably have my cell number. Feel free to reach out. Don't let me be the reason that you don't get things done on time. I will respond, and if I don't, I'll give you extra time. So we're getting toward the end of the semester, and thanks everybody. I hope this was helpful. If it wasn't, I'm sure, please let me know, and I'll stop talking now so you can get back to work. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.